Okay, so I'm continuing in our review packet. I'm looking at quadratics. I'm in the middle of my box, but I have some extra credit. And I'm a little annoyed that some of you, when you watch my videos, are not listening. So, my extra credit is that I would like you to put a thank you to whatever teacher was your favorite teacher this year at the bottom of this page. Okay, so as I identify my roots, I need to go through making my box. I made my x in my box, and I have -3, and I have +1. So this is going to become a 1x and a -3x. I almost always put x and x on the outside. I check to make sure that I don't need something extra. I don't, it's just the x squared by itself. X times 1 makes 1x, x times -3 makes -3x. So this allows me to get my factored form. I know you can't see that, just give me a moment. My factored form is going to be x plus 1 and x minus 3. Make sure that these are in parentheses when you talk about your factored form. Okay? From there, I go and find my roots or zeros. I get my roots or zeros by taking the opposite of what was here. Okay? This was a problem that you could have cheatered your way through. Okay? Some of you have the ability to tell when you can do that and when you can't. Most of you cannot, which is why I tell you to just make the box every single time. So, my answers are going to be -1 and +3 because that's the opposite of those numbers that are right here. Sometimes I'm going to get a number here, and if I do, I need to divide by that number. That has not happened yet, so we're good. We're just taking the opposites. So, right now I'm going to put my roots on my graph. And keep in mind that that is very difficult for me to do that on a iPad. So those are my two roots. It asked me, does it have a minimum or a maximum? And for me, that question is not the right question to ask you first. The right question for me to ask you first is it concave up or is it concave down? And you should say that it's concave up, that it looks like a U. The reason that it looks like a U is because it has a positive there. So it should be concave up, it should be U-shaped. If it's concave up U-shaped, that means that this lies at the bottom, so it's a minimum. Okay. So then it asks me for my line of symmetry, my axis of symmetry. There's two ways we can go about this. Okay. Way number 1. We can count. Once, 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 once. This is my middle line. I have to count an equal number into the middle. That's one way. The way that I've been doing most common in our classes is x equals -b over 2a. Okay, my -b here is going to be negative the middle number, which would be -2. This turns into a positive. All over 2 times my first number was just a 1. So I really get +2 over 2, which means I really get 1. If you do not have this x equals somewhere here, you will not get credit for your line of symmetry. You need to make sure it says x equals 1. If my x equals 1, that's my x of my vertex. So here comes the hard part, the part that everybody gets annoyed by, that you don't want to do, and that's okay. But we still got to do it. I know you don't want to, but we still have to. So I'm going to erase some space for myself. Keep in mind, I'm working on an iPad. I take up a little bit more space than you probably do. Okay. So I'm going to go and plug 1 into my formula. A lot of teachers teach you to plug 1 into your factored form, the x plus 1, the x minus 3. Honestly, this is easier. But if you made a mistake here, it affects whether or not you get that correct. So I've been having you plug it into this x squared minus 2x minus 1. I'm going to show you that they're both the same. Does not matter which way you did it. So if I plug in a 1 for 1 squared, and I plug in a 1 for 2 times 1, I get 1 minus 2 minus 3. I should get negative 4 is my final. 1, 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. These multiply. That's a big mistake I see people make there too. One of the reasons why I don't like it. These multiply, they do not add together. 2 times negative 2 makes negative 4. This is the y of my vertex. So if I go to put my vertex on my graph, I'm going to go to 1, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my dot there. So I get my U shape. Except that's not good enough. Because right now you only have 3 points. That's what I required last time, last chapter. I'm now looking for 5 points in almost every case. There's a few exceptions. Okay, but this is not one of those exceptions. What I haven't put on my graph yet that I already knew was my y-intercept. 1, 2, 3. So that now gives me 4 points. I need another one. That one comes from mirroring that over. So here are my 5 points, and I get my U shape. My domain is going to be negative infinity. Ooh, that's not good. My domain is going to be negative infinity to infinity in parentheses. My range is going to be, very bottom is negative 4. Very top is infinity. Infinities get parentheses always. The negative 4 gets a bracket because it is a solid line. It is a solid dot. Okay. So when I am asking you on the test, I'm going to ask you for standard form. You should be able to tell me, oh, Ms. Dorker, standard form is x squared minus 2x minus 3. I'm going to ask you for factored form. You should be able to tell me, oh, Ms. Dorker, factored form is x plus 3, x minus 3 in parentheses. I'm going to ask you for vertex form, which we haven't gone and filled out here yet. So let's do it. Parentheses, squared, opposite x, same y, with an x right there. My opposite of my x is going to be the opposite of that point, which is 1. So I'm going to take a negative 1. My same y is the same as that number. It should be negative 4. So now you have your vertex form. You should be able to name a couple of points for me. The y-intercept comes from standard form. It's negative 3. The x-intercepts come from factored form. It's the opposite of these numbers. It's negative 1, positive 3. The vertex comes from vertex form, or forms your vertex form in this case. And it's the opposite of this x, the same as that y. Okay, so those are all the things that you should be able to do. You should be able, in this case, to get your vertex form from that x equals negative b over 2a and plugging it into a form.